Welcome everyone to the very first episode, the inaugural episode of the MTGO Cabal podcast. I am one of your hosts, Owen Turcotte, Peach Hearts to Win on Magic Online, and I am joined today by Theo. Why don't you introduce yourself, Theo?
All right. Hey everyone. I'm Theo Jung, and I'm Theo_Jung on Magic Online. And yeah, I'm your other co-host for this podcast. So I'm currently a college student in uh, Berkeley, and Magic-wise, some of my notable accomplishments include two Super PTQ top eights. I competed in the Legacy Championships last year on Magic Online, as well as a top eight of an Open a while back.
Very cool, very cool. So, kind of what we're looking to do with this podcast is just have a look at the past events on Magic Online, maybe some of like the news of like organized play on Magic Online, and just kind of what's going on moving forward. We have a pretty big roster on the Cabal right now, so there's no real limit of guests that we can bring onto the show, even if we want to extend outside of that. Um, but today we are joined by Andrew McCloskey and Gregg, two known Magic Online grinders that have had pretty recent success, really big success this past weekend. Um, Andrew finished in the finals of a Pioneer Challenge, and then Kaya won, I believe, definitely the biggest constructed, but might be the biggest super
Oh,
qualifier on Magic Online.
it's definitely the biggest one I've played in for sure. 464 players.
Like, that's
It was
actually
a
insane.
yeah, it was a 10 round monster.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna get into Pioneer first because uh, Pioneer is kind of in an awkward space right now, and there's just not really any Pioneer this weekend, so we're going to close out with Modern because there is a ton of Modern this weekend. So, Andrew,
Yeah.
why don't you talk to us a little bit about this past weekend and your thoughts on Pioneer?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew McCloskey. I go by mccloudbro on Magic Online and on Twitch and on Twitter. And I've been really playing a lot of Pioneer since really the quarantine happened. I'm mainly a paper player, but I've been grinding Magic Online since been stuck at home, and I've been playing a lot of White Devotion, and that's kind of what I've been working on the past few months. And that's what I ended up in second with after splitting the finals of the Pioneer Challenge. And Pioneer, yeah, it's in a kind of a weird spot after the expected bans that didn't actually happen. Um, and it actually made me take kind of a week off before the challenge. I was like, I don't really want to play this format anymore, so I took most of the week off, and then I didn't even actually mean to play the Pioneer Challenge. I was gonna play the Modern Challenge that morning, but then I missed it time wise, so I decided to play the Pioneer Challenge and ended up making top eight. Um, so yeah, a lot of people I feel like were down on the format. Inverter and Breach are kind of terrible to play against, and people kind of are sick of those decks. But it's actually been really interesting what's happened this past week because Mono Black Aggro has kind of come out of not nowhere because it's a known deck, but it's kind of come back in force, and it's like really taking over Pioneer right now to the point where Inverter only had two decks in the top 16 of the challenge, and it's really been kind of not as oppressive as it usually is. Um,
Hmm.
so Pioneer has definitely been seeing some churn, been seeing some changes, and the thing that I want to talk about or that I'm not sure about is it because the format is stale and people don't want to play those decks anymore, or is it actually the fact that Mono Black just has such a good like matchup with these combo decks that it really is kind of churning the metagame?
Well,
So
oh, you go ahead, Theo.
I played a lot of Mono Black when the format was first there, and I've also played a lot of the inverters, so I have a fair bit of experience from the matchup from both sides. And I think I can like certainly say that Inverter does feel somewhat behind against Mono Black. Uh, Just because like Mono Black obviously has Thoughtseize, it has a quick clock, along with just having ways to interact like mid combo. Like playing around Murderous Rider as an inverter player is somewhat hard. Because like unless you just have the Oracle and 0 cards in the library, they can just kill your creature. So yeah,
Or kill your Jace in response to activation.
yeah, definitely. And I can definitely see why that deck has picked up in stock, especially if you respect Breach by adding some copies of Damping Sphere in your sideboard. The deck seems like a real contender to me.
Thoughtseize does seem like it's probably the best card in Pioneer still.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Thoughtseize being the best card in Pioneer.
Yeah, I think to like compete, to have a competitive deck in Pioneer, you got to have like either a really fast clock like mono red decks do. You got to have Thoughtseize like mono black does, both vampires and mono black aggro, or you got to have like some other way to combat a combo, or a combo of your like in your own deck like mono white has. Like so for my list, I was expecting a lot of inverter in the challenge, so I upped to 3 Gideon's Interventions main, which is not super stock. People are usually on 1 or 2.
Yeah, a lot of those, a lot of the inverter players can't beat that main deck.
Exactly.
Other than like discarding out of your hand with Thoughtseize.
Or
Yeah,
decking themselves with a Jace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, that doesn't even always work because sometimes you just shut off Jason and then they lose too.
Yeah, I've always
cutting down on Ashiok too. So go ahead, Theo.
I've always found it correct for like mono named Jace Wielder Mysteries with Gideon's Intervention post sideboard, because a lot of the inverter players actually tend to board Thassa's Oracle out in that matchup and cut down on the combo.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, so just want to talk about mono white devotion a little more here, I guess. So you've been playing this deck for a while, and what do you think its place in the metagame is? At least against the top 2 decks, like Breach and Inverter. Because obviously, if you want to be competitive in Pioneer, you have to somewhat like respect the 2 and have like a positive matchup against the 2. I think like if your deck just has an unfavorable Inverter matchup, then you're starting at a pretty bad spot if you want to be a competitive Pioneer deck.
I mean, if you're thinking about it, this is like a mono white aggro deck that's playing a 4-mana do nothing enchantment to beat combo decks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little more than that though. Like the mono white deck is kind of like the mid range deck in the format. Like people are saying that it's not that the format doesn't really have a mid range deck aside from Sultai. But I think that mono white is kind of filling that role because it can grind with a lot of the control decks, with like just playing owls and like having Heliod's on the board. But it can also deal with the aggro decks. In the challenge, I played out of the 9 rounds, 7 rounds against aggro decks, and I was 5-2 against them. Especially against mono black, like having exile removal effects is super relevant against them. And then just having a turn 4 combo that you can like luck into sometimes is like super relevant in the format. Like being able to release inverter sometimes if they don't have a removal spell or if they tap out on turn 4.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that matchup being incredibly good for you, since like alongside all the exile-based removal, a lot of their creatures are just Savannah Lions, right? And look at like the cards you have access to. It's like 2-mana 2/2 First Strike or Daxos. Like I imagine
they can't remove a Heliod.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, Heliod's like completely unkillable, and also like there's some lists of the mono white devotion deck that are just like built to better beat that deck by playing like Fiend Slayer Paladin, which is unbeatable.
Yeah, a lot of decks have been picking that up, which I'm not sure about. I've tried in the sideboard, but maybe I'll try it again.
Pioneer to me feels it's kind of split down the middle with like Inverter and Breach are kind of like the tier 0, and then everything underneath it is trying to like beat it, and then mono white is kind of like what splits it, so that mono white beats everything trying to beat Inverter and Breach, but then mono white has a really bad Breach matchup, and then with the introduction of Eliminate, I think that Inverter might actually be like a bad matchup for mono white going forward, unless like if you look at Andrew's list with the Gideon's intervention, that kind of swings it back. But that's just kind of how I see it, is that like mono white is trying to beat everyone not playing tier 0.
Yes.
And then yeah, like it's kind of the just like that, like Andrew said, like that mid-range middle point of the format.
Yeah. I'd say like the inverter matchup's probably like 45% for mono white. Like it's slightly unfavorable.
Yeah.
It's still like if you can draw right, it's pretty easy.
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's not crazy
Mhm.
like breach or anything like that, but it's still like a
Breach
little
is
bit
not
unfavorable.
Yeah. So I think the metagame, for whatever reason, I feel like the metagame is going into the right direction. You know, if it is because like we actually have churn and now something that beats black aggro is going to become the top deck for a while before inverter takes it back over, or if it's just the fact that people just are sick of playing these decks. For whatever it's worth, the Pioneer events have been firing this week. The challenge min fired. It was only 64 people, but they the last few prelims have been firing with over 16 players. Not a lot over, but it's showing a little bit more signs of life. And they did just reduce the amount of players, the minimum number of players for the challenges to 32 for the foreseeable future. So maybe Pioneer events will start firing a little more.
Yeah, I think that's a function of Pioneer not really having like many big events recently or kind of coming up in like the foreseeable future. I mean, I'm sure that they will happen sometime soon. There's just nothing that's like scheduled already, so people don't really see like a big reason to have to like get in reps with inverter or really even play inverter. Or like breach or anything like that, unless they really enjoy those decks. So then that cuts down on those numbers, and then when there's less inverter, less breach, more like kind of reasonable decks, or it's more of an enjoyable format, it leads to people wanting to play the format more, where you see higher numbers in the events. So I do think that things need to change with Pioneer, but I think that Pioneer is in a good spot right now.
Agreed.
All right.
And I personally am someone who actually enjoys playing against and with inverter a lot. I think there's some amount of games that just feel like very unsatisfying with the deck, right? Like when they go like turn 4 inverter into like a combo piece, like those games feel like really lame. But I feel like the more longer games that you get to play with inverter and thinking about like the zones that you don't usually think about in a normal game of Magic is something that I enjoy very much. I'm not sure if anyone else here feels the same, but
Yeah, it kind of just operates on a different axis than a lot of decks, and like you have to think in a different way when it becomes more of a control or mid-range deck as opposed to just a straight combo deck. Like it is a very interesting concept. It's just the fact that Pioneer doesn't have the tools to interact with it outside of Thoughtseize that just gets like a little bit lame.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people have problems with it, just because like not everything has good ways to be able to interact with something like that outside of playing exactly Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
Or being a combo deck in itself that can go just as fast.
Yeah, it seems like you're pretty dead if you're not playing a combo deck or like a really good way to disrupt a combo deck. Like basically the only like good deck in Pioneer that's not a combo deck, or like that either doesn't have a combo or like an extremely fast kill, is like mono black. Like you look at Manatraders like Burn that can kill very quickly. Mono white has the ballista combo, and then like inverter and breach obviously are combo style decks, and I think that's just a function of there's not good enough hate cards in the format outside of Thoughtseize that kind of like are catch-alls for certain types of decks.
Or even like Spirits, which the white blue version has been picking up a little bit of steam in Pioneer. Like that has what's the card?
Spellcaller.
Spellcaller, yeah, it has Spellcaller, has a clock. Like it can actually interact with the combo a little bit while presenting that clock.
Yeah, like you have to, like, you can't just play like you can play Sultai, but I would not advise it. Just like a creature, like that deck has Thoughtseize as well, but it's not backing anything up with Thoughtseize.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the only games that deck is capable of winning are ones where it results in Emrakul.
Pretty much.
And then you just like eat your combo opponent to death with their own cards.
Oh, jeez. All right.
So certainly a fun thing to do.
So, Kaya, did you want to get into your big win this weekend in Modern?
Sure. Why not? So I won the Modern Super Qualifier on Sunday. So like what, 460 something players?
Yeah, it was like 10 rounds.
Yeah, it was a long tournament. Yeah, what else to say about it?
I know that you basically like went undefeated in the event. Like you scooped your opponent in the
Yeah,
last
so-
round or whatever.
Yeah, so my matchups were in order: red green mid range or Ponzo or whatever you want to call it, Greentron, a mirror, Jund, another mirror, mono red prowess, mono white tokens. Ooh,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, the best you beat the best deck in Modern.
Round 7 beat the best deck in Modern, unbeatable. Then round 8 was Blue White Shark Blade. Round 9 was 4-color Shadow, and then I scooped a Blue Red Prowess player into top 8 because I felt fairly good in that matchup. Yeah. And then I won, quarter semis, and then even though the finals doesn't matter, I still won it.
What did you play in the quarters and semis, as well as the finals?
The quarters, I played some kind of like red green prowess, like zoo kind of deck with like, it's got like the prowess creatures, but it's also playing Tarmogoyfs and had Hooting Mandrills.
Right, I'll pull up the deck list now.
Yeah, the semis, I played the same 4-color Shadow opponent I played in round 9, and the finals was the same blue-white Sharkblade player I played in round 8.
Kai, in case people don't know what you were playing, I don't know if we mentioned it yet. What were you playing?
Oh, I was playing Eldrazi-tron because that is the only thing I play, and I've been playing it for far too long.
And your handle on Magic Online is TheTunnelingCat, right?
Yes, that is in fact accurate.
And you are one of the trophy leaders in Modern, I believe?
I think right now I'm like 5th or something, but that's just because I've been like taking the past couple days not playing Magic after.
Yeah, the trophy leaderboard in Modern right now is pretty like squished together as well. There's like a lot of people at like the same number as you, so it's kind of just whoever got them within time or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what do I have lots of thoughts about the Modern format going forward, but I'm sure that you're just going to be. Is everyone in the conversation right now queued for Manatraders this weekend?
No.
I am, yes.
I am
I did
also.
not get this.
Are you Kaya and Andrew?
I am not. I had a really bad streak of doing really poorly, so I'm not
Kai
playing.
and I are in the same boat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played about 30 matches and ended up 500.
Yeah, I feel like that is a very Modern thing to happen.
Oh yeah.
I feel like in Modern,
the matchup lottery too many times in a row.
Yeah, in Modern, it always feels like
get out
there's either a deck that's just the best deck, and it's very obvious it's the best deck, or there's just a bunch of 50% matchup decks that have good matchups, bad matchups, and you just kind of gotta hit them right.
I think that kind of format is actually really good because that means every deck somewhat has an exploitable weakness, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm not
I
saying
think
it's
it really.
bad.
Yeah, I think Modern's actually in a really good spot right now for that because after they got rid of the actual problem cards from before, like I'm not talking like the Astrolabe ban, I'm talking like before that with like like Oko, Mox Opal, when those were creating a lot of problem decks.
Is everyone planning on playing the PTQ this Sunday though, at least, or playing some amount of Modern this weekend?
Yeah.
No,
I'll definitely.
I can't. Problems that are nice to have. I don't get to play the PTQ.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, Louise, holy! Wow. But maybe a Modern challenge or something, or at least you have some ideas about Modern going forward.
Oh yeah, I'll probably just play the Modern challenges since everybody that cares about the format is going to be busy with the with the BTQ.
Distraction.
Yeah. So it kind of seems like over the course of this week, Modern as a format has kind of had multiple evolutions. I think that leaving the PTQ, I would say the top dogs were E-Tron and Red Prowess decks. Actually, I'm not sure why Red Prowess decks, but I've been playing against them a lot in leagues. They've been putting up a lot of results, whether that's like red green, blue red, or black red.
I've seen mono red as well.
Yeah, and mono red. Like
I played against a mono red version in what was it, like round 6 or something of the SQ.
Yeah, so I'm not sure who is like, maybe the deck is just really good and that's why, or maybe there's someone who's hyping it up. I know in the Cabal specifically, Craterdom is hyping up red black prowess, I guess, quite a bit. But it doesn't really make sense to me why people would be so high on red prowess when E-Tron just won the last PTQ. It kind of is a little bit unintuitive for me, but I think that's where the leaving the PTQ we were at. And then it's kind of seemed like a lot of people have picked up blue-white control decks. They finished in, there was 2 blue-whitish, like there was 1 Bant, 1 blue-white in the top 4 of the PTQ, 1 in the finals.
Well, the blue-white control deck in the finals wasn't actually a control deck. It was like the
it was Sharkblade.
Yeah, Sharkblade. So it's less like a hard control deck and more like it kind of feels more like a tempo deck a lot of the time.
Oh, really? How is its matchup against E-Tron?
I think it's worse than traditional blue-white control, just because you're so much more susceptible to just like dying to beat down because you don't get to play a bunch of wraths, and your card advantage is more in the source of things like having Stoneforge getting a Batterskull that just blanks a bunch of your opponent's cards, rather than like these other blue-white decks now that are playing like 9-10 planeswalkers and have frantic inventory.
Right. Because I was going to say that I thought that maybe, because it seemed like later in the week, blue-white had started picking up some traction as one of the contender decks, and I thought that might have been because it had a good matchup against E-Tron as well as Red Prowess, but maybe that isn't the case.
I think traditional blue-white has a fairly good matchup, just because like 4x Field of Ruin is really good against E-Tron.
Yeah.
Well, I think a part of the popularity is if you know who Doomswitch is. He's someone that's played a lot of Band Control when Astrolabe was legal and had a ton of success with it. He tweeted out a list. He tweeted out a Sharkblade list last week or sometime around then. And I know Aspiring Spike has also been playing in a stream. So maybe there's been a lot of eyes on that deck.
Yeah, that's actually where the finalist opponent that I played against, that's where they got their list, was from Doomswitch.
That's cool.
Yeah, I find that this is for every format, but also Modern. I find that oftentimes when metagaming, it's not really about like what the best deck is. It's a lot more about like what the most hyped deck is. Like the deck that's getting pushed the most with the most like backing behind it. Like you look at Mono White and like that deck is. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be real for 1 second. That deck is
I
awful.
played it against
I think
6-0. Mono White was 6-0 in a PTQ.
Exactly, that's my point. That deck is terrible. So there must have been a good amount of people playing Mono White for it to hit at 6-0.
I think the thing is, it's really good at beating up things like Jund and Gruul, where it's really bad against something just against like big mana decks.
Yeah.
It's a deck with polarized matchups. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of his matchups are like 70-30 in one way or another.
So, funny story about Mono White. My friend, Max Komanowski, also known as Twinless Twin on Magic Online, he runs the No Banless Modern Twitter and the Twitch. So
Did somebody play Mono White tokens?
Yes, I played Mono White tokens in an exhibition match against Twinless Twin on Jund in No Banless Modern. I did not drop a game.
Wait, what do you get in No Banless Modern with Jund? Is it just is it just is that it?
And Mental Misstep, yeah.
Well, everything has to play Mental Misstep. That's the problem.
But
you either have to play Mental Misstep or no 1-drops.
Yeah, I left out the part where got Merciless deck before I beat Judd twice in a row. So, so Wokek apparently does not compete against actual Hogak.
Not
But,
surprising.
Yeah, I do.
The turn 288 is not good against, or is the turn 288 is really good against the deck playing 1/1s.
I know, but it's a lot of 1/1s. But they made a lot of 2/2s. That's what really got me.
Oh, great for pull-up. That's the real token deck.
Well, you should have make 3/3s, and then you win.
That's true.
You put Oko in your mono white deck.
I just wasn't good enough.
Oh my god.
All right, let's maybe get back on topic.
Yeah. So going back to blue white. So I think because E-Tron beats up on the red decks, I think that it kind of leveled into the next spot where it was E-Tron and blue white maybe being the top decks. And then as kind of late as last night, I saw like a lot of people in our Cabal chat kind of riding this Green Tron hype train, saying that Green Tron was going to be the go-to deck. And then even Yama had said in my chat last night that he was playing some Green Tron, and then he streamed Green Tron in a prelim today. So I kind of feel like that's kind of going to be getting a lot of hype and a lot of backing going into the weekend, and we're pretty close up to like the events. So I could see Green Tron being very, very popular in this, definitely in the Saturday event, the Manatraders.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that makes a lot of sense to me if like what you're targeting as Eldrazi Tron, because Green Tron has historically had a great matchup against E-Tron, just because they just go a little bit bigger, and Eldrazi Tron doesn't have very many ways to disrupt Green Tron's mana. And obviously, like the blue-white control deck doesn't really have a great matchup against Tron.
It's like an 8-way rock paper scissors.
Yeah.
Like that's how the format just always feels.
Yeah. Although that's been changing a little bit in the last year or two with the introduction of Force and Negation of Field of Ruin.
Yeah, I think that's made blue white a lot better against traditional Tron.
Yeah, I think Sanctuary Lock is also really, really powerful. I really don't think there's anything that you can. So Tron was really, really good against blue white because it just went bigger than blue white. Whereas now I think that Sanctuary Lock is pretty much the biggest thing you can do in Modern. I really don't think there's anything that you can do that goes over the top of that.
Yeah, that's probably accurate.
But yeah, so what do you guys? What does everyone think of Green Tron? Is that anything that interests anybody, or is it kind of a fade and you're just gonna play what you want to play?
It'll definitely be a consideration, I think. Green Tron is definitely not my style of deck. I have like a pretty big bias towards fair decks in all constructed formats.
Same.
Yeah, so I've avoided Green Tron for as long as I've been playing Modern. but I think you should somewhat respect it this weekend. Obviously, like I don't think anyone should overhaul their whole sideboard just because they hear like Green Tron's been getting a little bit of hype. But I think like big mana is like one of the tiers to sort of respect in Modern right now, right?
Yeah.
With like Amulet or other Titan variants in Green Tron showing up in fairly respectable numbers.
Yeah, like I don't think Green Tron is just going to be like even the most played deck. Like I think that you'll still have.
It's probably going to be one of these blue-white variants because that's what a lot of people just like playing. People just love playing Uro and all that kind of.
I think that blue-white might be the most played deck this weekend, and then I think there's still going to be a ton of E-Tron. Like if I was to guess the top 4 decks, I would bet the farm that the top 4 decks are Red Prowess variants, E-Tron, Green Tron, and blue-white.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well,
and yeah. I think with Green Tron, it's something that people are somewhat comfortable just picking up without many reps and just jamming too, because it's got that reputation of just like have Tron and you can kind of free run your way to victory.
Yeah, a lot of the skill from Tron actually just comes from not your decisions you make in the games, but the decisions you make either like before games or between games that matter more than anything else. like how you construct your deck and how you sideboard matter a lot more than the sequencing that you play your spells.
Yeah, I think that you can be taught pretty easily how to get like within like the top like 85 to 90 percentile of playing like Green Tron just by like somebody explaining to you like how to mulligan with the deck, how to giving you a sideboard guide, and just kind of talking with some people or someone giving you a good list.
Yeah. And I think especially when there's a PT invite on the line for these kind of events, and the Manatraders usually like incentivizes a lot of people who don't normally play Modern to pick it up. You're gonna see a lot of these decks like Green Tron, Red Prowess, or like E-Tron, because those are like the decks that people used to get into Modern more often than not.
Yeah.
Like you're almost never gonna see like someone deciding to play Modern, like, and it's pretty new to the format. Picked up Amulet Titan.
I mean, sometimes you do, but
Holy. What are you thinking for this weekend, Theo? Or are you kind of in limbo? I know that you had said that you thought that blue-white was really, really bad in the group chat, but I don't know if maybe your tune has changed a little bit to that.
Well, maybe there was a little bit of hyperbole there, but I ran through a league and the deck just did not feel very good. I've played Blue-White Stoneblade in the past, and I don't think Shark Typhoon really fixes any problems the deck had before. So, and the mana is like surprisingly awkward for a 2-color deck. Like playing 4 Field of Ruin and like putting Archmage's Charm into your deck isn't really free. So
Yeah.
a lot of like what was going on just like didn't feel that great to me. So I put the deck down for the time being.
So
Least.
no chance this weekend to see some Shark Typhoons and some Batter Skulls?
Man, I did actually win a game against Prowess by equipping Batterskull to a 1/1 Shark.
Yep.
And the turn before, I had the option of blocking with the 1/1 Shark into a Swift Spear when I was at like 5 and I would die to a Bolt. And you know, I did have the Batterskull in place. And you have to take the damage there.
You haven't lived until you've equipped a Batterskull onto onto an Emrakul the Promised End.
Oh god.
Or even more absurdly, equipped it onto an Ugin the Ineffable that you animated using a Karn.
Karn liquid metal coating my Ugin, put Batter Skull on it.
So I guess Blue-White Stoneblade is not really an option for me this weekend. I think a lot of why it's been seeing a lot of success is because a lot of people are playing it, and also the people that tend to gravitate towards those kind of decks are really good at playing fair Magic.
Yeah.
So my question would be, like, if you're expecting this much blue-white, what would you guys do to metagame around that? What do you guys think are decks that could be preying on the blue-white decks?
I think Green Tron and Ponza are very, very good matchups for, or are very good against blue-white.
Yeah. And one deck that has been popping up a lot is the Rug Scapeshift deck.
Yeah.
I know. I believe in Fivano, also known as Lucas Forta, he's been crushing on Magic Online with it before this week. And I know Andrew Jessup tweeted out a list that he is 15-0 with currently, both on Ruckscape Shift. And I've tried that deck, and it feels incredible to me. The new cards have solved a lot of the problems that previous iterations of the deck had. Like, you don't really have to like play bad cards like Search for Tomorrow anymore. When you get to play Growth Spiral, it's good on turn 2 as well as like turn 8. The whole deck is essentially like a redraw towards Scape Shift. And
I feel like the version of the deck as it is now is what like the blue Scape Shift variants from like 2014 wish they could have been.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like these like actually have a real game plan outside of just comboing a Scape Shift. Because Uro is kind of just an absurd Magic card.
I mean, they just printed like insane blue-green cards for like 2 years straight, and then
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's a blue-green like modern deck. Like
Yeah, like you get like how many of these cards are new? It's like Uro, Renin 6, Growth Spiral, Mystic Sanctuary, the Ketria Triome. Like that's all ridiculous. Like honestly, Ketria Triome I think is one of the biggest things for the deck. The fact that you don't have to play a bunch of garbage mountains in your deck, you get to play functionally just more tapped breeding pools that are also mountains for when you combo.
yeah, I will say
Yeah,
one thing about that deck is that I think that I don't understand why that deck plays any sensors. Never mind like 4 sensors and 2 remands. That seems insane to me.
So
Yeah.
I think Censor is not a modern playable card, and I do not understand this.
I'm gonna disagree a little bit here. I think Censor, like, it seems like a really bad card, but it plays a fairly important role in the deck, right? Because like because it's like escape shift deck. All you need to do in the early game is like not die. And Censor is like a fairly like good interactive card. You can like cash it in earlier in the game.
Yeah,
But
it
then
kind of
later-
functions like additional copies of Remand, where it's like
But then the deck
this
plays
helps me
2
not die in the
remands.
early. This helps
Yeah.
me not die in the early game, and then when I don't need it and I'm just trying to kill my opponent in the late game, I can just cycle it to try to draw into escape shift.
It's just a redraw in the later game.
Why wouldn't you just play 4
and
remands though? Then that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't get the split of like 3 Censor, 3 Remand. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know, they're like functionally fairly different cards, I think. And maybe it's wrong to play like straight up 4 Censor, but I think like some copies of it actually like merit inclusion in the deck.
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna get sold on Censor anytime soon.
Yeah, me neither. I've
But-
been trying to play it in Pioneer for a while, and that still isn't good there. It's like
Also-
okay, but it's not great.
Also, Mystic Sanctuary in that deck. My god.
Yeah, that's pretty hot.
Yeah. You can just stack your escape shift.
It's like, oh yeah,
back
I'm gonna
on
escape
top.
shift counter. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it back on top of my library.
Well,
Oh,
use Eternal
okay.
Warrior Escape Shift until you have enough lands, and then just
Yeah, exactly.
Sanctuary back.
I will say one thing about that deck though is that I think that it is a it's not a new archetype, but it's kind of a new reinvigoration of the archetype, and it isn't getting as much hype as other decks. So I think that because it doesn't have as much hype, and because it's going to be a very difficult deck for people to be willing to just pick up, I don't think it is going to be a big metagame player. It's more kind of if you know to play it, but I wouldn't metagame for the deck.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think a reason a lot of people who enjoy these kind of decks are gravitating towards it because it has a fairly good E-Tron matchup, just because Uro is a huge problem card for that deck, as well as the fact that you can just win out of nowhere with escape shift after they've assembled a ridiculous board that you couldn't answer.
Yeah,
And I think its blue-white matchup is actually quite good.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
both of the fact that Uro and Mystic Sanctuary are what really do that.
Yeah.
Plus, you get to make more land drops faster in like.
Yeah, exactly. And like
reactive
Renin
mirror.
6. Like 2-mana Planeswalker, that card's basically basically unbeatable.
And you just have
I have-
inevitability against them too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Renin 6 has been incredible in that deck. When I played it, it helps you hit your land drops obviously, and you can rebuy your Ketria Triomes after you cycle them.
Oh, yeah.
Draw cards.
Yep.
Go.
And you don't have to be as worried about if you play an early Valakut, you have to play Valakut and they feel to ruin you, you can always get it back later.
yeah.
I've been very impressed with that deck as of late.
So is
I think
that
another thing that makes its blue-white matchup so good is just like the card Veil Summer got printed at some point for who knows what reason. I don't know why they decided that green for Cryptic Command is good, but so be it.
1 mana Cryptic Command in green? Sounds great.
Unbeatable.
Oh, jeez. Are you?
Just gets the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if so. It kind of sounds like you're leaning that way to playing Team Escape Shift this weekend. Am I totally off in saying that, or?
Oh, definitely not. That's one of the 2 decks I'm considering playing in both the Manatraders finals and the Super Q this weekend. The other one is Dredge.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that. What everybody thinks about Dredge right now.
So I've the entire way through for the Manatraders series. I finished 16-4, and I believe I ended up in the top 20 of the leaderboard.
Nice.
And it felt really good to me then. Like no one was really playing Leyline of the Void. I think Graveyard Hate is going to be at an all-time low because if you look at the top decks, none of them really like use the graveyard all that much. Like E-Tron, Blue Eye Control, Red Green.
I think
Prowess.
I think saying Blue Eye doesn't use his graveyard is kind of wrong, especially the hard control versions. You really want a card like out of E-Tron, you play like relics because they're just so good in a bunch of matchups. I think more people should be playing cards like that because of how good they are against some of these more like fair graveyard decks, like Blue White.
Yeah,
I mean, Blue White isn't even really like a graveyard deck, but like Frantic Inventory and Mystic Sanctuary, you really want to have answers to those kinds of cards.
Yeah,
you don't want them to be casting 2-mana draw 3s.
I think specifically Relic of Progenitus is a really, really good card to have access to right now, as it is just like a graveyard hate that cycles. So against like the blue white control decks, you aren't just like playing this kind of graveyard hate card that's just going to sit there and do nothing. You're able to like crack it at opportune times, or if your hand's a little bit stagnant. So yeah, it's pretty free to play in a lot of sideboards. Like it's a colorless card.
I'm surprised it's not seeing more play than it is. I think more people should be playing it even in things that like are less obvious for it.
But yeah, Dredge. Yeah, so you're between Teamer and Dredge, eh, Theo?
I think so. I played Dredge in last weekend's Super Qualifier. I went 3-2 drop. But
so it's an outstanding result with Dredge.
Outstanding.
10 out of 10. Unbeatable.
Yeah. Well, I did mulligan for 3. 2 games out of 3 in round 5, so that might have something to do with it. But the deck, like, I've been playing it a lot. It feels solid. It doesn't seem like anyone's packing all that much graveyard hate right now. And the times they do, it's often a form of soft hate, like Relic, or like Spellbomb. Ashiok is a bit of a problem, but the thing is it doesn't come down until turn 3. So there's like a bunch of games where you just put a bunch of power into play on turn 2, and they Ashiok you, and then you still win because you put, like 2 amalgams and like a Narcomoeba in play on turn 2.
Yeah, I've played a lot of Dredge too, and like having access to like Sodek's sideboard guide is like super relevant too to like pick up the deck. And the addition of Silver Smoke Ghoul I think is like pretty underrated. That card is like kind of unreasonable for the Dredge archetype, both in Modern and Pioneer. It's like I think a very, very important addition to the archetype.
Yeah, I've been playing the Silver Smoke Ghoul version as well, and it's impressed me so far.
Yeah, it feels like it's less grindy because you don't get to like just constantly because like the card it replaces more or less is Bloodghast. So you don't get to just have like the loan back lands and then play lands, get these things back. That you can just like keep attacking through anything. Whereas the Ghoul is a little harder to just continuously recur like that for the deck.
Do you find that with the new version of Dredge? So an issue that I always found that I had with like the Bloodghast version was that, especially in your mulligan decisions, you were very reliant on Life from the Loam and being able to cast it at some point in the game to get back your Bloodghast. So like you basically needed like 2 lands, one of them being a green source in your opening hand. Whereas now it kind of feels like you're able to keep like maybe like Mountain, Blood Crypt hands because you're not with like a Cathartic or like a 1-mana enabler because you're not so reliant on that Life from the Loam plan. Is that kind of like a big deal for that deck, or how do you feel about that?
I think it's much more transition to an Ox of Agonis deck than a Life from Loam deck.
Yeah.
Like being able to just get an Ox down on turn 2 or 3 is like pretty much the game plan from what I've played down of
turn 2 Ox of Agonis.
I've seen it.
Oh yeah, I've seen plenty of turn 2 Ox of Agonis. I'm not surprised by that.
If you're lucky, I've done it.
Yeah. I guess you can enable it with like Merchant of the Veil, and then you
like turn on Merchant, then like flip over another Dredger.
Even
Yeah.
with like you can even get there with what's it called the artifact, right?
Shriekhorn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Can you?
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
I guess you can.
You Shriekhorn into a Stinkweed Imp and then Shriekhorn again.
Mhm.
And then you play like a fetch, and then you off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I will say that I don't think that I would choose to play Dredge right now. I think that deck is. I think that in Modern right now there are so many powerful decks that you can play. I don't really want to play a deck that is just susceptible to getting destroyed by like something like Graveyard Hate. Like I don't want to play a deck that just kind of is like I kind of want to be answering stuff right now rather than asking the questions. If that makes sense, I don't want to. I don't want to be playing a deck that's just going to get destroyed by Graveyard Hate, or like, say if Affinity was a deck in Modern right now, I wouldn't want to play like Affinity, where say they play Stony Silence, they'll just get destroyed. I just kind of I want to be able to play a deck that like I saw them talking about this on Versus Live today, and I think it's really true. Where they said that they think that it's kind of bad to be playing a deck where it's just like you just have one game plan and you hope it's good enough, because the power level in Modern is so good right now. You can afford to have a game plan A as well as a game plan B, and I kind of agree with that.
What about the big scary boogeyman that nobody talks about, Neobrand?
I was about to bring that up.
Oh, I actually do think that Neobrand might be the one exception for the rule there. I think
I
Neobrand.
agree with that.
I think
that
Neobrand
deck's
is so
like
good.
its game plan is like, okay, I'm gonna kill you on turn 1 or 2.
Yeah. Neobrand is like, if combo's good, Neobrand is the best combo deck. It's the fastest combo deck.
Yeah, like it's a deck that can win turn 1 on the play,
Yeah.
which is absurd.
So, I kind of want to like push back on the sentiment a little bit that you have to be presenting like a plan B, or like answers are better than threats. Right now in Modern, I think the case is the reverse, because it was a lot more diverse than it is like a couple of weeks ago. With the Astrolabe bans, you see these old archetypes like coming out of the woodworks. Like Shadows had a resurgence. Also, like Prowess is in a bunch of places, and you run into all this like random stuff. In that case, I think it's better not to answer everything, but to be the one asking the questions. Like, do you have the turn 1 relic? Or like, do you have the Grafdigger's Cage or the Ashiok? Because like a lot of the time they're just like not going to. And with like people being pressured to like prepare for other decks that are not graveyard decks, I think Dredge has sort of like an edge in that kind of field.
Well, like what I'm trying, like I see what you're saying, but what I'm kind of trying to like say is like maybe I was wrong in saying that like you should be answering, like giving the answers rather than asking the questions. But like you could just play like Prowess over Dredge, and like those are both kind of similar-ish decks, but one doesn't just lose to like Rest in Peace. Where I understand that like Prowess loses to stuff that Dredge doesn't, but it's a lot less obvious what Prowess loses to. Maybe Prowess isn't the best example, but like, what's like a maybe E-Tron's like a decent example. Like, it's a lot. You have to put more work into beating E-Tron rather than just being like, oh, I'm gonna play 3 Rest in Peace in my sideboard and destroy Dredge.
The sideboard cards. You're saying the sideboard cards have a lot less impact in those matchups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I can see that being the case as well. So Owen, what are your picks for this weekend? What are you leaning towards?
I think I am leaning towards Ponza. I'm pretty close to being locked on it for Saturday. I'm gonna see how Saturday goes, and then I might transition to seeing what happens in the Manatraders on Sunday. I think that it's pretty close between Ponza and Tron. I just think that Ponza, like I said at the kind of mid or start of the show, I think the top 4 decks are Blue-White, E-Tron, Green-Tron, and Prowess. And I think Ponza has a good matchup against 3 out of those 4. It might not be as polarized as a lot of the other ones, but I'm fine playing a deck that maybe doesn't have like 65-70% win rates against some decks if I can play a deck that's going to have like a 55% win rate against like 3 of the top 4 decks. And then I think that I've been tooling it a little bit to try and beat up on Prowess a little bit better. I did a stream last night with my sideboard having 3 Abrades in it, and I was really impressed with Abrade. I think Abrade is a sicko card right now. I think it is really good against the Tron decks. I think it's really good against these blue-white decks that are kind of becoming more mid-rangey, like all-in on Batterskull type decks, and then it also is just a great way of killing like the prowess creatures.
I think Abrade is actually one of the better cards you can have against E-Tron as well.
Yeah.
Like it's even like
There are a lot of other ways to try to fight through like Blood Moon effects involve playing artifacts.
It's also really good against like random decks that you see like goblins or humans.
Yeah, just random like creature combo kind of decks and humans and whatnot.
What happened to goblins? I know that was all the hype.
I don't know. I just think it's like a stupid
and it won the
deck.
first Modern Challenge.
Yeah, and then people started playing cards that beat goblins. I think it's more. I think the goblins had the problem where it's like people didn't realize how quickly it could combo at first, and they just lose to it comboing, and then they over aggressively try to stop it from comboing, and then it beats you with a fair game plan using ringleaders, where you need to do something kind of in between, where you're just like, all right, I'm gonna like, make sure I don't just immediately die to combo, but at the same point have a good plan to beat their long game.
Yeah, and I guess it's pretty obvious how you beat that deck too. It's just
exactly.
Engineer.
Yeah, it's kind of just like it's probably still like a tier 1.5 to tier 2 deck. It's just like, I just don't think it has the hype behind it that it had when it first came out, and it's not seeing as much play, and like people have kind of learned how to beat it as well.
I also think it's probably not tuned to the best list yet. Like eventually, I feel like people will work on it a little more and find the way to make it as consistent as possible. Like when I was playing it, there were a bunch of cards that were just like that just didn't fit together right.
Yeah, like I feel like the deck before was doing way too many 4s and 1s for a deck that's playing that was functionally playing 8 copies of cards that just tutor for something. I think you more want to be playing more into the mid-range plan and less into the combo plan, because the deck really. Because like when you play more into the mid-range plan, your opponent's more likely to just die to the combo plan because they're too busy trying to answer all this other crap.
Yeah. And I think the deck definitely has like a lot of legs in the format, like a fast goldfish as well as like a backup plan. So I was like surprised to see it sort of like fade out of the spotlight in this past week.
I think the best card in the deck is actually probably still just Sling Gang. I think that card's super underrated for the deck. And people don't respect it properly.
I think what Andrew's saying about how the deck isn't tuned properly actually does carry a lot of weight. I think that it's probably the newest archetype. Is it a controversial statement to say that Goblins is the newest archetype in Modern? The newest good archetype.
I don't think so. I think the deck was actually kind of good a while ago, or like at least playable a while ago before Snoop, where it played the like persist combos using either of the 2 effects that help with that, like Metallic Mimic or Grumbly.
But like most of these cards came out like within the past year, right? Like like Modern Horizons gave a big shot to Goblins, but that set's only a year old.
It was like Modern Horizons, then like what Core 20, because that gave it the 2 best cards that Goblins has like historically had in stuff like Legacy and Matron and Ringleader, because those were the 2 cards that Goblins has always wanted.
Yeah, so like Goblins hasn't really become like a deck at all since like a year, and then has like this iteration is like brand new, like with the release of like the newest set. So I think that kind of contributes a lot. That like you look at like Tron's been around forever. Prowess has been around for like at least a couple years. Like E-Tron's been around for like 4 years or whatever, and like these decks have been worked on, tweaked on, have like gained a following. Like you there's not like a Modern Goblins like specialist that we can like name, but like everyone knows like the TunnelingCat as like an e-tron specialist that has like you have a sideboard down on Patreon. Like there just isn't this content for goblins that there's no like big draw for like people to want to play goblins.
Also, I
Yeah.
think the bannings like kind of open things up to all these other decks that people are trying to like try again. So,
Yeah, because goblins kind of existed before the bannings, and now it's
Yeah.
like, oh well, things are different, so now we're gonna try all these new things. I feel like goblins is the kind of thing where like 2 months from now it's gonna come back and do well in something because people just kind of forgot about it and stopped knowing how to properly play against it.
yeah, it'll spike something at some point.
Yes, like somebody's gonna find a good list and tune it really hard. I think the good game plan right now is actually probably more into playing less tutor effects, more tutor targets, where you're better at beating things like e-tron
Yeah.
and blue white.
So Kaya, are you just basically just e-tron all the way for the challenges this weekend? There's just nothing to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah,
It's just gonna be
absolutely.
e-tron.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Any like changes to your list that you think going forward?
Right now I really like how the list actually is, even with all the things that other people are doing. I think the one change is if you expect to be playing against more blue white and Tron, is to play a second cavern and to playing Ghost Quarter instead of playing Tech Edge.
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask about that. Is that
Like honestly, I think if I'm playing the challenges this weekend, I'm probably actually going to go down to like 1 blast zone, 2 caverns, a Tech Edge, and a Ghost Quarter.
Interesting.
Huh.
And then honestly leave everything else the same, because I think the lands are the biggest flex slots in the deck as opposed to anything else.
Makes sense. And Andrew, what are your thoughts for this weekend for Modern? What are you gravitating towards?
I don't know if I'll be playing anything this weekend. I don't know if I have enough time to spend on any of the tournaments. But if I was to play something, I would I have a lot of experience with blitz decks, so I'd probably be playing mono red, or I haven't gotten a chance to play the black red version yet.
Yeah.
But that's just what I have the most reps with, so I'd probably be on that or dredge, just because I haven't enough time to test anything else.
Mono red over blue red.
I haven't been a huge fan of the blue red version. I've played like 5 or 6 leagues with it, and it's just not hasn't felt very smooth in my opinions. I feel like going a little more mid range as opposed to just aggressive is not really what the deck wants to do. But
I think I agree with that. I think Kiln Fiend is a much better game plan than playing something like Stormwing Entity or Sprite Dragon. I think trying to kill your opponent on like turn 3 is better than trying to extend the game to turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, that's where I've been with the deck.
For a deck like this, like I think mutagenic growth is something that people weren't playing for a really long time in versions of this deck, and it started to pick up a lot more lately, just because you really want to be able to try to kill your opponent on turns like 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think that in those decks, mutagenic growth is like a card that has probably should have been in that deck forever. I think
agree.
I've been very impressed by mutagenic growth, and then on the flip side though, I think Gutshot in that deck is so bad. I think Gutshot is terrible in those decks.
It like you run out of cards so fast if you have Gutshots in your deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can also build like the mono red version to better beat other creature decks too, because there's a new card from M21 that I saw playing a little bit. It's just like another prowess creature. It's like
Heartfire Immolator.
Yeah. The Heartfire. So it's
my M21 draft knowledge coming into play here.
Yeah, the mono red prowess opponent that I played against was playing Heartfire Immolator, and it seemed really, really good, allowing you to just like kind of have game against a lot more things that would otherwise beat you. Like you don't lose to creature combo as easily when you're playing things like that. Whereas, because like Lava Dart doesn't kill things. Lava Dart doesn't kill anything. It never kills anything. Neither does Lava Spike. So like you can't focus on something like that being your way to kill things, because it just doesn't. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah, and like the way I've built my mono red decks in the past is like I almost always have had 4 braids in the sideboard, just like for challenge.
Oh yeah.
Like, I feel like anybody playing less than 4 braids or 4 of that effect is just like doing yourself a disservice in the red decks.
Wow.
And like playing,
I agree.
I see a lot of decks playing. What's the card? the just the shock wild slash, and I don't understand why.
I
people are
don't
playing
understand that either.
I'm
Like-
always a proponent
Yeah.
of playing fork bolt in that deck, and I don't understand why people don't play more fork bolts. And I know it's a sorcery, but
I think
it's done so
Burst
much
Lightning
for
is my shock of choice in that deck.
That
But
too.
I think Forkbolt is the best shock currently, just because of how other things are going. But I can see Burst Lightning being better. Like Burst Lightning is definitely better than Wild Slash.
don't
But I think
understand
it's definitely between Burst Lightning or Forkbolt,
yeah, I think
depending on what you think you're going to be playing against.
I think Wild Slash is
Firebolt.
just a concession of people are just so afraid. People who play that deck are just so afraid of Core Firewalker. Like you see these decks
Yeah.
playing like Kozilek's Return. It's like holy, like you're dedicating sideboard slots to Kozilek Return in your mono red aggro deck. Like
Yeah, that
because
seems
you're just so afraid of
seems-
like Core Firewalker, and it's like what decks like Burn is like the only deck that plays Core Firewalker.
Well,
yeah, but you still just beat up on Burn by making your creature extremely massive by casting a bunch of spells. Like, oh, you gained 9 life. Okay, well my creature has 36 power.
Well, I think Burn is a pretty bad matchup for that deck. I think that's almost like a wash. Like they're a deck with
Yeah.
just like so much removal for all your creatures, and you're a pretty threat light deck.
Well, I think mutagenic growth really helps with that though, because they try to target your things with burn spells, and you're tapped out and think it's gonna work, and it just
Yeah,
doesn't.
actually,
But, like-
that is a good point.
if you get Searing Blaze, like,
Ooh.
is mutagenic growth really doing?
5 me.
Long
So yeah, I
way.
think that mono red is still a good option. It just needs to be built a little different than
Yeah.
some of the decks that I see.
So
Yeah.
if you're a prowess player, I want to ask about the spicy green-red prowess list that just top 8 the Super Q.
Oh
Yeah, let me
jeez.
take a look at that.
And
list.
holy, this list, I love it. It's the sideboard especially. It's full of one-ofs.
Oh yeah, that
Such as
sideboard.
Ravenous Trap. It has one Hazaret the Fervent. It has one copy of Boil. A one of Magus of the Moon. A one of Grafdigger's Cage, Tormod's Crypt. Well, yeah, those make sense. But what do you think about this green-red version? I know, Kaya, you played against it in your quarterfinals match.
Yeah, I think this deck's better meant to beat up on things like Etron, just because of Tarmogoyf being a much better threat at fighting through a 4/4 than Swift Spear and Soulscar.
Yeah.
But I think you lose out on being good against a lot of the other decks just because you're not as fast.
If everyone that's playing like these prowess decks is like gravitating towards like mono red or the blue red version, then just casting like a turn 2 Tarmogoyf seems like a huge like edge in sort of the pseudo mirror.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that's what I assume the person that played this was thinking, is that it seems like it's good against other versions of the same kind of deck, as well as being good. Like Tarmogoyf is just a good card. People, Tarmogoyf is good. Who would have thought?
Tarmogoyf is good again. It wasn't good for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Well, Tarmogoyf's not good against cards like against combo decks and Oko. So like that's kind of what killed it for a while.
Yeah. Well, turn 1 Astrolabe, turn 2 Kawada wasn't here to
Yeah.
terrorize the green menace anymore. So
Yeah, and I think
God,
that's a good
I
point.
hate
like,
that. I hate Coatl so much. That card is such a.
But I think that's a good point. Like the lack of Coatls or the downturn in Coatls is going to be huge for these creature decks coming back and having success
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
and
Coatl
this
was
is
definitely
what-
something that carried a lot of these control decks to being a lot better against these more aggressive creature decks.
and I think
The
that's
fact that they just have something on 2 that
sorry.
they're perfectly fine just throwing away immediately to answer something.
So one thing I want to ask about is if you look on Goldfish, the number 2 deck in the modern metagame, we haven't even talked about it all today, which is Jund. Where do you guys think Jund fits in the metagame?
It doesn't.
I think that Jund is. Jeez. Oh my god. I think that Jund is basically the exact same deck as Ponza. I think that Jund has like hand disruption. Ponza has land destruction and prison type cards like Colossus and Blood Moon. And then Jund has like removal spells like let me just pull up the list. Like it has kind of like removal spells like Lily, Fatal Push, Assassin's Trophy, Culligan's Command, and then Ponza has creatures that just take over the game, like Glory Banger, and like Colossus as well.
I honestly can't believe I've seen the day that Glorybringer was played as a 4 in a tier 1 modded deck, but here we are.
But yeah, so I think that Gruul is kind of like, Gruul faces up better against the bigger decks, so like E-Tron, Tron, Blue White, Amulet or whatever, and then Jund faces up better against like the smaller aggressive decks like Blitz or anything like that. So it's
Goblins.
Like goblins, yeah.
Yeah. Like your 4 Fatal Push 3 Lightning Bolt deck is going to be very good against the deck playing a bunch of 1/1s and 2/2s.
Yeah, so I think that the Gruul and Jund are two sides of the same coin. They are the mid-range of the format.
E-Tron's a mid-range deck. What are you talking about?
Yeah, E-Tron's a mid-range deck, but I think E-Tron scales more in like that one direction of like the bigger decks. So like like Gruul and like Ponza and Jund are right there in the middle, and you kind of got to choose one based on what you're expecting to play against. And like I've said, I think 3 of the 4 best decks in Modern right now are bigger decks. That's why I'm more likely to play Gruul than I am to play Jund.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that makes a lot of sense.
A lot of the Jund results are like 3/2s in prelims and stuff, so it's not like a super well-positioned deck. You could just have those Jund people that will always play Jund no matter what. I feel like that's
people love Jund.
Yeah. I also think that Gruul is also basically just a 50% deck as well, just like Jund.
I think it is, but it gets some things where it just like randomly gets to win the game on turn 2 because your opponent didn't keep a hand that could beat it.
Yeah, it does have more sicko starts than Jund does.
I guess Jund does have that sometimes where you have the hand with like 3 discard spells and you just rip your opponent's hand apart, then play a Goyf and they die.
Yeah.
But I feel like those are fewer and far between than compared to like the turn 2 Pillage or turn 2 Blood Moon hands out of Gruul.
Or just like a turn 2 Bloodbraid into like a Colossus or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's absurd.
Yeah, so I think that we're just gonna wrap up the show now. If we want to go one by one, starting with Andrew, then going to Kaya, and then Theo. If you want to kind of just give a plug, maybe talk about anything that's going on with you right now. Here's kind of your opportunity.
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at mccloudbro. Same on Twitch at mccloudbro, twitch.tv/mccloudbro. I stream like every weekday or most weekdays from like 1 Eastern to like 5 Eastern. And I'm usually playing Pioneer, a lot of mono white if you're interested in that archetype. But I also play some other stuff like I've been playing around with Dredgeless Dredge in Pioneer and some other things. So follow me there. Looking forward to playing some more.
I'm just at TheTunnelingCat on basically everything, so like Twitch, Twitter, etc. I've been trying to stream more, but there's a lot of other shit going on in my life, so it's hard to get a schedule and stick to it. But hopefully, I'll be streaming more in the coming weeks. Mostly just playing E-Tron and nothing else.
All right. I'm on Twitter. I don't stream as of yet. And I don't really have that many plans to either. I'm at Where'd My Jewel Go on Twitter. So you can follow me there if you want to hear about like my tournament results or anything else that I tweet. Yeah, so I'll be playing either Dredge or Scapeshift this weekend. See you in the Super Q. Hide your girl, bring your relics.
And so I am P-Tarts to win on basically everything. I have Twitch, where I have been streaming a lot more lately, usually just punting it off on Twitch. chilling with the squad, punting them off. We got the jokes, the goofs, the gaffs, and then Twitter for kind of tournament deck updates, stuff like that. Maybe some more jokes, and YouTube where I'm starting to upload some of my VODs and stuff like that. But yeah, we're gonna be trying to make this a more regular podcast. We'll cycle through some MTGO Cabal members, and other than that, yeah, I'll have everyone's links and everything down in the description below. I think I'm gonna put this on YouTube and then some sort of podcast platform. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and look out for more episodes.
All right.
All right.
Hope you had a good
Forever.
time. Hope this was somewhat educational or provided some kind of value. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you to all our listeners.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, guys.
All right. Bye bye.
Anytime.
Thanks.